Those of you who are long-term viewers of the channel, and thank you so much for your support by the way, will know that if there is one thing I am obsessed with as much as watches, it has to be travel. I love getting out there and seeing the world for what it is. Were I a man of significant financial means, exploring new places would absolutely be what I did with my time. When it comes to watches, I thought about how they might reflect that thirst for new places, and watches with other languages on the dial came to mind. There are 3 reasons I can think of as to why they might appeal. They can help you learn and immerse yourself in another language and culture. It might simply be your native tongue, or perhaps it's a nice reminder of a place that you have fond memories of. Regardless of the reason, I thought I would see if I could uncover any gems, and I've used a simple set of rules to guide my choices. First of all, each watch featured must utilize a language other than English on the dial. Secondly, the watches must all be available for less than $1,000 at the time of writing. And finally, for the sake of variety, each brand can only feature once on the list. With all that said, let's get into the video. Well, you can tell from this starting point that this list was not easy to put together. South Korea has 2 counting systems, Sino-Korean and Native Korean, with the former being closely linked to Chinese Hanja. They both have different use cases in Korean society, but neither really appears to feature on many watch dials. I've had to resort to featuring a homebrew piece from Etsy, but I feel like there must be some watchmakers out there making more refined pieces than this, but from the UK at least, I simply couldn't find any. I do promise that the majority of the list doesn't feel like a cop-out like this, but I did want to include at least one digital piece, as technically speaking, there is the capacity for the display of multiple languages. This doesn't quite cover all the functionality of the watch, as the numerals remain standardized, but you can choose between English, Spanish, German, French, Italian, and Russian. These are the defaults, but there are other more specialized languages available on region-specific models. This is true for a lot of Casio models with day displays. I've just picked out one of the octagonal models because they happen to be my personal favorite. I really don't want this inclusion to come across as political or indeed religious. I just wanted to feature a watch with a Hebrew dial, no more, no less. The earliest form of Hebrew language is thought to date back to 1200 BC, and the counting system uses a letters as number system known as gematria. Some of the watches featuring these dials are either not branded or simply feature Jewish iconography. The models from KYT feature on the list essentially by default, as they were the only branded models I could actually find. I think in this case the language is a bit more interesting than the watch designs themselves, if I'm honest. Last week I put together a video looking at Japanese domestic market watches, and as part of that project I discussed cultural preferences for simple and understated pieces. The Beams Japan Kanji doesn't really look to be a great value proposition. It's a plastic quartz piece on a nylon strap with Chinese numerals. It does, however, embody those cultural preferences, and I'm personally a sucker for Japanese iconography, so the Beams Mount Fuji logo adds a little something for me, and on closer inspection, while very simple, I do actually really like the aesthetic of the watch too. You definitely have to be an aficionado of Japanese culture to make this make sense cost-wise though. Again, I don't want to be political, but I would only be buying one of these from another collector at the moment, rather than from the source. I'll leave it at that. All models from Vostok feature the Russian alphabet on the dial, which was developed in the 9th century and is derived from Cyrillic script. The 420059 is perhaps their most iconic piece. It's a 200-meter rated watch designed primarily for use in diving. Fans of horology will often sing the praises of Vostok as a brand because they make their watches in-house. This means that they produce their own movements, rather than just making cases, dials and handsets, then buying in movements from other brands to put in them. The Hindu-Arabic numeral system was first developed by mathematicians in India around 700 AD and was developed from the earlier Brahmi numerals. The system was seen as a much easier way of representing numbers compared to Roman numerals. And when you see Arabic dials, they are most prominently featured on high-end watches sold in the Middle East. But given the tight budget I'm following for this, I'm featuring a model from one of the most popular affordable watch ranges of all time, the Seiko 5 SNK P21J1. I personally think there is merit in buying this piece simply for the aesthetic quality of the way the numerals are printed. It's a really clean dial with excellent use of white space. Effectively, I could have included any smartwatch on this list, as almost all of them allow you to customize the language settings used on the display. I do not profess to be an expert with smartwatches or technology in general, but I do think that if I had to pick one, it would be the Apple Watch, and the Ultra is their strongest offering in that regard. For a decade I've been an Android guy, but when my latest two phones lasted less than a few months each, I swapped back to an iPhone. And despite the specs being worse, the software just gets more out of what's there. I've had similar experiences with the Apple Watch as opposed to other smartwatch offerings in the past too, so happy to be corrected, but that's my view. I'm taking a trip to Thailand towards the end of the year with some friends, and I am very hopeful that I'll be able to see a Wise model or two in person. I'll just proactively apologise for what is about to be some horrible pronunciation though. It is fitting that a proudly Thai manufacturer makes models featuring Sankhya on the dial. It's a counting system developed from Old Khmer script and is notable for its curved flowing characters. In modern day Thailand, Arabic numerals are far more common, but the Thai version still features on official documents, currency, calculators, and in this case, watch dials. While there isn't a completely definitive record, Roman numerals are thought to have come about in roughly 500 BC and were thought to have been developed from earlier Etruscan numerals which used similar symbology. As a numerical system, it's still fairly popular for things like the names of video games, dates for tattoos, and of course, watch dials. But when used on a watch, the numeral for 4 is often adapted to the tally version in order to add some visual balance. I've picked out the Hamilton Boulton as my model to feature, which utilises the numerals, as I think that elegant tonneau case makes it stand out as more formal and dress-minded than anything else on this particular list, and that's something that the Roman numerals really help to accentuate. The second-hand price of the Sinn 104 fluctuates quite a lot, and while I could not quite find any under $1,000 at the time of writing, there were plenty on the eBay sold filter that demonstrate that it's possible. As a proud German watch manufacturer, it's no surprise that the 104 has German abbreviations for the day complication, but they're part of a dual language display wheel. You can pick between English or German, and once you set a language, it will stay on that language unless you manually change it to the other. This neat little adaptation means they don't have to produce separate versions of the same watch for the international market. So there we have it, what I consider to be the 10 best non-English language watches under $1,000. Now, you'll be able to tell from the footage that this is mostly based on my research and online window shopping. Unlike a lot of my lists, this isn't something I have a huge amount of experience with, and in part That's because I'm living in England and have extremely limited language skills beyond my native tongue. It also proved to be a really difficult list to put together. I guess the world becoming more and more homogenized towards English is a big part of that. I am, however, 100% sure that other people will have a more refined perspective on these pieces and will be far more knowledgeable. So I'd love to open the floor to you, the audience. Are there pieces that I've missed here and could or perhaps should have featured? I'd particularly love to hear about entire languages that I've overlooked. Let's discuss in the comments section below. As ever, thank you for your time. If you've enjoyed what you've seen or found it informative, consider dropping a like on the video and subscribing for more content like this in future.